Each autumn since 1960, the teams from Washington and Dallas have waged football's epic battle of the Old West. Cowboys versus Redskins, a modern-day range war, and the NFL's most bitter rivalry. It's more than a feud between division foes. It's a clash between two cities and two franchises who truly despise each other.
If you aren't a Cowboys, you better hate the Redskins. It was just that way.
They always had a better-than-you aloofness to them. I guess it was their attitude that upset a lot of our guys.
It's been a series with as many plot twists and colorful characters as a Louis L'Amour Western, and it all began over a song. Back in 1959, the last thing Washington owner George Preston Marshall wanted was any new Sun Belt team cutting into his profitable Redskins Southern Broadcasting Network. He considered everything below the Mason-Dixon line his territory and was prepared to stop anyone who got in his way.
There's no excuse for expansion in the National Football League.
And in 1960, the NFL wanted to bring Dallas into the league. One of the ways the Dallas owners were able to strong-arm George into voting for a Dallas franchise was they went out and they bought the rights to hail to the Redskins and threatened not to let George play at Redskin games until he agreed to let Dallas come into the league. And George, needing that song, having to have that song, relented and voted to let him into the league.
From then on, Marshall was singing mostly sad songs as the expansion Cowboys enjoyed surprising success against Washington. By the late 60s, Dallas was winning virtually every game in the series, so the Redskins went out and brought in a new coaching administration to the nation's capital, the legendary George Allen.
George Allen is what made the Redskin-Cowboy rivalry. I think if anybody has a misconception that it wasn't his creation, they're wrong. George would come up with these different things. You know, you gotta hate the Cowboys. Gee, look, they think they're better than everybody else. They don't run a hard-nosed, tough football like we do. We want to turn this into a fist fight. We want to turn this into a brawl. It's not going to be fancy. It's going to be blood and guts, go after nose-to-nose football.
Clearly, the Cowboys were more talented than the Redskins, so Allen looked for any psychological edge to give his team an advantage.
One year, we had to fly to Dallas to play the Cowboys on Turkey Day, and we were really beat up. Had a bunch of guys hurt, so George came in the meeting, and he said, okay, I'm going to Dallas by myself. He said, everybody else is staying here. He said, and I got a hold of Landry. He's leaving his players at home, too. And he said, we're going to walk out, me from my side and Landry from his, and he said, winner take all. He said, I want to slam him in the ground. I want to kick him in the groin. And I tell you, you're talking about a bunch of grown men laughing. Boy, we laughed so hard.
I mean, I wanted to strangle George Allen. I wanted to get my hands on him. I was hoping somebody would knock me out of bounds on their bench right into the middle of George Allen.
Roger Staubach and Company. Roger Staubach, Tom Landry, Tex Ram. Here we go.
Allen's head games had the Cowboys believing their practices were being watched by Washington's spies.
If an airplane flew over or a helicopter came anywhere close to our practice field, we stopped what we were doing. And I know that we had a hotel at the end of our practice field, and all those rooms would always be rented out the week we played the Washington Redskins, and we'd have scouts going back, make sure there was nobody in the rooms.
Yes, sir, this rivalry had everything. From espionage and paranoia to the personal attacks Redskins tackle Dyron Talbert made on Roger Staubach.
Dyron and I really had it as far as a dislike, and he started it. He started calling me a few names, and it would make Roger so mad, you know. And I kept saying to Roger, now, Roger, he's just trying to get you mad, you know.
In 1974, Talbot also knocked Roger out on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys were losing big and only had a rookie quarterback to turn to.
There'd been a lot of talk in that particular game. Dyron Talbot actually came out and said they were going to knock Roger out. Landry came and said, well, they're talking. Said they're going to knock Roger out, and all we've got left is that rookie, you know, nameless rookie. And then he just kind of would turn his head and look at me like this. I was afraid they weren't going to sit me in. You know, that was all they had left there, because one of the biggest nightmares of head coach in the NFL is to send in the rookie. But I was confident. You know, I felt like at the time I was a gunfighter with a football. If there was somebody open, I could hit them.
Trailing 16-3, Longley led Dallas to a trio of second-half touchdowns, including the game winner to Drew Pearson in the final seconds, as the Cowboys frustrated the Redskins again. Games like this turned up the rivalry's intensity on the field, and the passion often boiled over into the stands as well.
Some fan hits me over the head with a beer bottle. And I thought about going up in the stands, and I said, no, I'm not going to do this. And I looked around, and there's Randy White, and he said, let's go. So we dove up into the stands, both Randy and I, and we were just hitting everybody. Of course, we were in full armor.
A Redskin fan poured a beer over my sister's head, and my brother came across 2 rows and decked the guy. And by the time he hit the floor, my mother had a blackjack in her pocketbook, and she was beating on this guy.
Back at home, Dallas fans could be equally nasty, but usually in a more subtle manner.
First game of the regular season, we played the Cowboys at Texas Stadium. I threw 5 interceptions in that football game. It was ugly. It just happens to be September 9th, which is my birthday. I'm sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden, everybody in Texas Stadium starts singing, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, and I'm sitting there going,
The rivalry continues even now, but today's players will be hard-pressed to equal the passion of the old days.
There always will be something between the Indians and the Cowboys, you know, and there's still a history that people do remember, but I haven't seen it as intense as it was in the 70s.